Hello and welcome back to Cozy News Corner for the week of 2026. And we're going to start off with some short stories or vulnerabilities. First off, we have Ghostscript that has a severe buffer underflow, DDoS problem, so the denial of service, in the new PDF tool. So if you're using new PDF, rendering PDFs, it could be a problem. Next up, we have Bookworm Chromium critical code execution. Of course, when it comes to Chromium, if you have a critical code execution, the denial of service, that is not good, so upgrade. Next up, we have the Linux Nvidia Tegra system components compromise, so that it's not good at all. So if you have Tegra devices and running Nvidia, then you should upgrade to the latest version. And we also have a general Nvidia critical security update, so update your drivers for Nvidia. Now to the news. First off, we have the Linux kernel 7.0, which is now released, and it adds a bunch of new things here. We have the removal of the init.rd code that advances transition to init ramfs. We have nullfs that is introduced, and this is a little bit of a particular thing. It's a new root system that is designed to be mounted before the real booting is done. And the rootfs, I'm quoting here, the rootfs initial ramfs cannot be pivoted to. The recommended method of changing the root file system in this case is to delete everything in rootfs, overmount the rootfs with the new rootfs, attach the standard in, standard out, and standard error in the new dev console, and execute the new init1 helper programs for this progress exist, then switch rootfs. So this is of course a very large process that takes much more time than having a nullfs root system that you can actually just mount over. So the solution is to have the base file system tree to be an empty file system, a nullfs, which upon which the temporary and permanent root file system can be mounted later on. So this is a big addition to this kernel and can improve boot times. Next up, we have support for MLDSA, which is a module lattice-based digital signature algorithm, which is a post-quantum signature. So that has been added as well. And we have also added lazy preemption. And before there were two types of preemptors. We had none and voluntary. And this is for long-running processes where you have long loops that are sprinkled with the calls for rescheduled. And then on each additional voluntary preemption point, there is available even in the preempt none mode. So you have different points where you say, okay, another process could take over here and run something. This is long running. So you run a bunch of small commands in your process to say, okay, someone else can take over at this point. But even if you have this voluntary preemption or you have none, all these calls will still be in the compiled code, which makes things a little bit complicated, of course. So the lazy preemption patches are very simple in their core. They add another flag, TIFF need a reschedule lazy, that indicates that there is a needing for rescheduling at some point. But not necessary right away. And the lazy preemption, preempt lazy, in most events will set the flag rather than this TIFF needed reschedule. And at the points where they return to user space from the kernel, either the flag will lead to a call to the scheduler or a voluntary preemption point in the return from an interrupt path. So this is a more modernized swapping method that also introduced this kind of a good way of preempting to a new system. And we also have added a new way of swapping. So before we had memory, and when the memory became too much, objects of the memory was actually just swapped out, and then they was swapped back in when they were needed again, and so on, which made things very slow. And when it comes to modernizing this, they have now added a swap table for lookups, so it will be faster to swap objects in and out of memory. So that's a huge improvement as well. It's a very complicated topic. I have read about it, but I don't really understand all the nuances there. So there is a bunch of links in the show notes. So if you want to read more about it there, then you can do that. But a quote was that up to 5 to 20% performance gain in the throughput or on RPS or build time for benchmark and workload tests. So it's a bit of a performance boost in some cases, which is really nice to see. So I'm looking forward to trying the new Linux kernel 7.0, perhaps not 7.0. I might wait to 7.01 or so. I'm not gonna run the first release of the kernel, even though they are much more going iteratively. When they're adding new features, you want them to be very stable, of course. Next up, we have Forgio, which is pretty much Getia, but it's a fork of it, because Getia went into more of it was a company that actually bought Getia and are now more proprietary, and people don't really like the license and so on. So we have a fork here called Forgio that have been around for a long while. So this is a self-hosted Git collaboration platform. And in this release now they have added OpenID Connect support. They have a significant update to the Forgio actions. And they also have in their rootless Docker config file has been removed, which means that the old Getia configuration files will not work anymore. So if you haven't migrated fully, then that could be an issue for you. And of course, this age verification thing continues. So this is still an issue, and now they are working on a federal bill for this OS level verification to the entire US. So this federal bill called HR 8250 was introduced April 13, 2026 by Representative Josh Gottenheimer and Representative Elise M. Stefanik. And the quote here is to require operating systems to system providers to verify the age of any users of an operating system and for other purposes. Okay. And of course, behind this is Meta, the Meta Parents Network, Common Sense Media, and Fair Play. And Common Sense Media and Fair Play seems a little bit genuine in their cause. Meta, of course, is the ones that have been most exploitive when it comes to children, so I'm not really keen on them being a backer for this bill. The bill text, the text of the actual bill, still remains unavailable as of April 2026. So only the title and the sponsors and introduction date are available and the committee referral are also public. So we don't really know what the bill actually says. We only have this quote, and that it's a bill that has a bunch of sponsors. So I'm not really sure if this is the normal case in the US, that you have closed bills that you are voting on, because in Sweden, if you write something, everybody can read it. It's this kind of official documents should be public, or else they are not documents that could be voted on or could be worked on in the government. So everything in the government should be open. Next up, we have AI code that gets approved in the Linux kernel, but with strings attached, of course. So when we draw a little bit of a comparison with other systems, so Gento has banned AI-generated contributions entirely since 2024. NetBSD has committed in their guidelines that LLM-generated code should be categorized as tainted code. But when it comes to the Linux kernel, they are allowing AI submissions, but the AI agents cannot set the tag sign off by. They need to use the new tag assisted by. So a developer certificate of origin, which they are using in the Linux kernel, is very important aspect, and it needs to exist. So there will always be one human that is accountable for each patch, but you could have an assisted by tag if you are using, for instance, Claude. And the assisted by tag should have a very particular format. So there should be the agent's name, the model version, and then which tools have been used in order to generate this code. So I think this is a good way of distinguishing different generations of code. If a human have created it, of course they are accountable. If an AI agent have created it, one human still needs to be accountable to that code and review the code, and that means that you won't get that much of slop in the Linux kernel. And next up we have Wine 11.7, which begins this MS-XML rework and have a bunch of different bug fixes. And some of the fixes are for parsing, control flow, constants, dictionary handling, line continuations, and split-related behaviors. And when it comes to the more lower level things that they have fixed, it's more when it comes to large file handling, HTTP response behaviors, human interface device reporting, WoW64 related crashes in some 3D graphics code, and also missing cabinet compression interfaces and vRedist startup regressions. So in this you will have improvements that makes it possible to run a lot of more applications. So here of course we can see Abby FineReader 12 Professional is one of those. We also say that we can run MapleStory World, Stratego, and so from 1997. So a couple of new games are now supported, and a couple of new applications are also supported. And next and last today we have Thunderbird that has unveiled Thunderbolt, which is a self-hosted AI client. And it's a GitHub repository. You can download it, you can run it, you can host it locally with your own models. And the only thing I have found, and I have read around, I've found that it's self-hosted. I have found that it's an AI client. But moreover than that, I haven't really found what you can use it for, what it's actually the use case, or so on, if it's connected to Thunderbird email client in any way, or if it's just a standalone client. It doesn't really say, so I think this is more hype than information. If somebody wants to check it out, of course, I think that is good. There is so many different AI clients out there, but without having a good model that could actually do tasks, the client doesn't really matter in my opinion. So this was all that I wanted to cover today. I hope that you found this interesting. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And I really hope to see you in the next one.